Hello and welcome to today's episode of pianoTV. I am Allysia, your host, and today we are going to continue our discussion on how to play from a Christmas music songbook. As discussed in the last video, I know it's really early for us to start talking about Christmas music, but for those of you who are going to be performing Christmas music at the beginning to mid-December, which is when most people want to play their Christmas music, you need time to prepare. So I wanted to make these videos a little bit ahead of time just so you were able to prepare. So what we covered in the last video, and please check it out if you haven't already, because we're going to be building on that one, is how to find the melody line, how to read chord symbols, and how to use the given chord symbols while following their given bass line. Basically, how to look at music that's really complicated and digest it and transform it into something that is appropriate for your level. Now, this is a skill that you can apply to things that aren't Christmas music too. It's just we're specifically targeting Christmas music in our discussion today. I want to focus on just one, well, it's kind of a simple topic. It's not that simple, but it's just one general idea, and that is adding right hand voicing. And that's going to be, the bulk of today's video. We'll get into some of the rules and ideas around adding voicing in the right hand and how to do it. And again, this is something that you can do regardless of what level you're at. You just tailor it to your own difficulty level. Let's get started. Okay, so what are voicing notes and why do we want to add them? Well, if we just play the melody in the right hand, it's just one note. It's just like a single line. So harmony notes make it so that there's 2 or 3 notes sometimes played at the same time. And that adds a richness of texture. It makes it just more interesting and full sounding to listen to. So it's a really worthwhile thing to know how to do. And luckily, it's a pretty easy thing to do if you have a basic understanding of chords. If you've ever been in a church for any particular reason and there's a piano player who's basically accompanying the congregation, you'll notice a lot of thick, rich right-hand chords as they play simple left-hand patterns. A lot of what church accompanists will play is chord patterns, and it just thickens up the sound and makes everything sound so much more interesting than it would without those added notes. So that's just one example of where you'll see right-hand voicing out in the wild. Okay, so these are the 4 rules. They're not rules, they're just guidelines. And we're going to talk about each of them in full, but I just want to let you know what they are first. So we have rule number 1, and we kind of talked about this in the last video. The melody must always be the top note. Number 2, harmony notes are either going to be found from the chord tones or harmony notes can follow the shape of the melody. So again, we'll get more in depth with that. And then 4, you don't need to add a harmony note to literally every single melody note. You could just kind of pick and choose. Often you can just add harmony notes to the strong beats and call it a day, and that works perfectly. All right, so let's talk about this.
Going back to our Silent Night example from the previous video, and I apologize for my voice, I've come down with some kind of throat thing, so I'm just gonna be talking really quiet, and maybe I'll sound like one of those relaxation videos when the person sounds really chill and peaceful. I don't know. That's maybe that's what this is gonna sound like today. But anyway, going back to our Silent Night example from last video, the melody needs to be the top note in the right hand, especially if people are going to be singing along with your playing, which, let's face it, that's oftentimes what happens when we play Christmas music, is people sing along. So we need that melody note to be very obvious, and we do that by keeping it at the top. We want to add harmony notes below the melody like this, and I'll talk about what I'm doing soon. But you notice when I add harmony notes below, they don't compete with the melody. It still rings through. But if I were to put the melody on top, it sounds super awkward, and all of a sudden we don't know what note we're supposed to sing. So that's probably the most important rule. Keep the melody as the top soprano notes and add harmony below it. The second step is to keep in mind that when you're adding harmony, what makes sense the vast majority of the time is to pick chord tones for your harmony. So for example, the opening, I'm playing a B flat chord in my bass clef, and here's the melody. So chord tones are any tones that are in a B flat chord. That would be a B flat, a D, and an F. So any of these 3 tones would make great harmony notes. So I could do something like this. And then when I switch to an F chord, I have an F, A, C, and since it's an F7, I could even use an E flat, but I'll keep it simple. I'll do something like this. I just basically kept an F on the bottom. And those work well as harmony tones. And then for a B flat chord, again, B flat, D, and F are all good options for harmony. Let me play a B flat chord, like that. And then an E flat chord, we have, again, 3 notes as choices. So here's my melody. Bum, 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 bum. I'm going to put an E flat on the bottom. And then back to B flat. I'm just keeping D as the harmony, E flat, I'm keeping E flat as the harmony. And that works really well. So you could stop there when you're adding voicing to a piece of music, and that would be beautiful and lovely. All right, so if you want to get a little bit fancier, the third step is to add, or I guess the third rule would be to add harmony notes that follow the shape of the melody but aren't necessarily chord tones. Okay, so what we'll notice with Silent Night, okay, first of all, a chord tone is a tone that's used in the chord. So if we're playing Silent Night, B flat chord, these 3 notes are our chord tones, and any melody that uses these notes are chord tones. So Sigh and Lent Night are all chord tones, but the Sigh, this one right here is not a chord tone. It's not in a B flat major chord. You hear how that kind of clashes? So we call this a passing tone because we're just kind of passing through it. We're going chord tone, pass back to chord tone, pass back to chord tone. So we're just doing like this tiny little pit step at the G, and that's why it works without clashing. And that's something that you can do with the harmony as well. So what you could do with the harmony, instead of just keeping D as your harmony note this whole time, you could move the harmony note with the melody and follow the same shape. And the reason this is going to work without sounding super clashy, because if I did this, that's disgusting. I'm playing a B flat chord and then our passing tones. It's hideous. But the reason we can make it work is because we're just quickly passing through. We're going from a chord tone, passing through, back to a chord tone. So it sounds really nice and it doesn't sound horrible. So if you can find moments in your music like that where it makes sense for the harmony to follow the shape of the melody, even if it's not a chord tone, you could still make it work. Now, for the vast majority of this arrangement, you're using chord tones. It's really only in these little moments where we're passing. Pretty much every single time we do the ba-da-da-da, you can kind of pass through with a harmony tone too, and it works really well. Harmony notes are worth experimenting with. They often sound great with chord tones, so again, you can kind of stop there and not even add any passing tones, and your arrangement will sound really good. But as you can see here, there are definitely situations to use non-chord tones because it can add a little something something. Otherwise, things can sound too nice all the time. So so that's another step, and we have one more. So number 4, you don't add harmony to every single note. Often the strongest beats will suffice. So if I played and then if I went like this and did like harmony on literally every single note, it's kind of overwhelming to play. So a general rule of thumb is when you're first adding harmony notes, just add them on the strong beats. Now since we're in 6/8, the strong beats are going to be 1 and 4, especially 1. So even if we just did this, so all I'm doing is every time I get to a beat 1 and a 4, I'm adding an extra note in the right hand. And I can do the same thing here with the right chords. really well. And you can even go further. You don't have to stop at just adding harmony on beats 1 and 4. You can add more harmony in there too. I would advise you, anytime you have any rapid movements that are kind of awkward, so like when we're going round John Virgin Mother and John, when we have these quick moving notes, sometimes to play harmony notes there is just really like awkward, like it feels cumbersome. So if something feels cumbersome, just don't do it. You don't need to add harmony to every single note is basically the essence of this idea. You could do passing tones, that would probably work. You could probably do even, that would be okay. So I'm kind of going off of what's written on the page and just doing my own thing. You can really take a lot of liberties with this. But in general, don't feel like you have to add a harmony note to literally every single melody note. Start with the strong beats and fill in some of the gaps that way.
Thank you for watching today's video. There might be a part 3 if I come up with, I haven't premeditated any of this, so if I come up with another idea that I think will be worthwhile for you guys on your Christmas music learning quest, I'll let you know. Feel free to send me some questions too, and that might spark an idea for a part 3. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully you're on the cusp of getting into the holiday spirit. I know we don't usually put up our tree until the beginning of December, so it's still quite early. We always start tackling Christmas music quite early in my piano studio, but I'm cool with it because I love Christmas music. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys. Double check and make sure. Cheese! Are you saying cheese? Oh, goofy girl. Cheese!